Welcome to Peter's podcast, where we talk about real yoga, actual happiness, and deep living. Thanks for joining me. Hello, Wendy Newton.
Hi, Peter Furco.
Nice to see you.
You too.
We came together today to talk about one of our favorite topics, the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali.
Yeah.
Because you have a course coming up, a multi-part course, no less.
Yeah. It's the first time I'm doing it in this kind of lengthened, expanded format, kind of over a period of 6 or 8 months, one module at a time, sort of. Hopefully the first 3 modules will be of a piece and the last 3 modules will be of a piece, and it all fits together by the end of the year.
And you've been asked to do a kind of an in-depth, longer format course, kind of a reading of the sutras course for a long time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I've done it in a couple of different formats, but never as a full, never conceived as a kind of a whole read through with an orientation and an integration and the four-pod as a standalone, each as a standalone. So I'm really excited about it because it's given me an opportunity to really kind of look back at what I've done and see what's new and exciting and fresh to my own eyes that have been in it for so long. And I think we're sort of in a new place with who's coming to ISHTA and who might be coming to ISHTA, and sort of seasoned teachers who might want to come back and dip their toes back in after a while, and new people coming up that might have fresh questions and fresh viewpoints. So I thought it was a good time to do it. And
and also one of the things that I think we certainly talk about among the teachers and ISHTA teacher trainings and workshops and whatnot is how we have a kind of a unique setting at ISHTA in that people have been studying various specialties for a long time, and so that we have a kind of a rich depth of understanding of topics, so that even if somebody was a teacher somewhere else, this is a place where they could do a deep dive into something, and even get some extra credit for it. Continuing ed.
Absolutely. Continuing ed is important. And also, this is the first time that I've done a series that is kind of adding up to a 30-hour training module, which is specifically formatted for that CE, Yoga Alliance CE requirement, or whatever, yearly, multiple yearly.
Right, because as teachers, you're supposed to keep learning. We certainly do.
Go figure, right?
In our self-study, and
figure.
And when we can, we love to take courses as well.
And we do. We do. Also, just for people who might be other teachers in other lineages, or just, sort of people who are 200-hour trained, or, we all come at it from a different place. This reading of the Yoga Sutras is really potentially quite different from what you might experience, because we are sort of conscientiously taking it as, through a tantric lens, or through the lens of Tantra.
So let me step back for somebody who's not so familiar, just to say, like, if you've read something by one of the typical folks who've brought yoga to the West, like Swami Shivananda, Swami Satchitananda from Integral Yoga, if you've read Yogananda's versions of things and such, these schools tend to be very Vedantic in nature. And so what you are teaching from is this book that you wrote with Alan Finger about the Tantra, looking at the sutras, as you said, through a tantric lens.
Yeah. And, you know, the short story about that is that, you know, Al was, you know, in our lineage, and this comes through Al and his early training. Um, some of his teachers came from the Vedantic lineage and some from the Tantric lineage, and it is a bit of a blend. And so this interpretation of the sutras that we worked on sort of in the years leading up to 2018 when it was published, um, specifically kind of take that viewpoint that he received, because that's how lineages work, and that he passed along to me. And you know, it's an important difference.
What would you say is one of the primary differences? Obviously, there's a whole 30 hours of how it's different, but
Yeah.
like just
Gosh, to encapsulate, um, you know, it's kind of about zooming out and seeing the eight limbs within the context. We look at it as, you know, not just getting from, you know, being absorbed in our bodily and life experiences in what we call avidya to this getting beyond in samadhi, but also how that is part of a larger cycle of bringing that experience of meditation, of getting to this, you know, larger perspective back into living, right? Back into our life as new points of view, new ways of seeing things, new ways of tackling old problems or old challenges. So it's kind of like, um, you know, it's not just looking at the first and second padas, but also at the third and fourth padas, and really what
yeah,
that might mean
yeah.
in a life, you know.
That is such an interesting thing to bring up because so often, you know, like I was just teaching the Bhagavad Gita, and people get stumped in the first chapter, you know, and so they never go on. But very often,
Mm-hmm.
when you're studying the Yoga Sutras, you spend a little bit on this samadhi thing and you hear a few aphorisms that stick, you know, and then like the four keys or something like that. But
Which
then,
is important.
which is all
Those little
important,
aphorisms and just
they are
getting
important.
sensitized to
But
them.
then it seems like the culmination then is the eight limbs of yoga,
Exactly.
when in fact that's only like the first two of four books. So
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I think the way that
Yeah.
you always talk about, you know, the third book, which is a lot about what comes from practicing in terms of what does it bring you,
Yeah.
not just how do you do it, but what does it bring you. And so often, you know, we get questions as yoga teachers in class, how am I supposed to do this? Like, what's
Mm-hmm.
the right way to do this, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's something beautiful in the sutras, you know, third and fourth padas, that are about, well, when you do it,
Yeah.
this is what
There's a,
comes.
and I even like to sort of break it down more into like, well, we do something, and then there's an effect that comes from that, right? Because we're very acquisitive in terms of knowledge in our Western culture, in many Western cultures rather, and you can't really acquire um, the outcomes so directly as we would like to think. And so you do something, you plant a flower and then it grows. Right? And it's just even thinking about it from these like very basic viewpoints, not even just like what we get, the powers that we get from yoga, which is definitely part of the literature. But we also, I don't know, I kind of wanted to massage it into, over the years of that I've studied it, it's kind of shifted into this sort of almost more of I think an everyday daily life what happens in us, what are the transformations, and how do we get there without being so technical about it, you know. um, I also wanted to say something about this first module of the training is a way to sort of step out first before we go into the four padas, even a way to step out and kind of consider the context and consider some of the bigger questions as they relate to the four padas and to some of the ways that we are talking about it in this book, right, which is called Tantra of the Yoga Sutras. So it's, every time I've taught either in the teacher training, the ISHTA teacher training over all these years, or in the various specialty courses and lectures that I've done, I always sort of have this, 15 minutes to give this big context and then go into the specifics. And I neither do I have enough time to go into the context nor into the specifics as much as I'd like. So I thought to take it out and just do one whole session on context and sort of set the stage for the rest so that we can really have that time to, let ideas come back to us and start to get the mind into this sort of more easily receptive place for this type of learning that isn't just granular. There's a place for granular learning, and then there's a place for putting it together. So I hope that is exciting to people, and I want to encourage people to come to this first module because it's actually going to be a requirement for the other modules. And I think there's something in the transmission of the Shakti of yoga that you can get it on recording. That's fine, but if you want to be there, I appreciate it, and it is a richer conversation and experience.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, for sure. Um, well, cool. Maybe what we can do is have a little bit of a flavor, like Alan
mm,
always loves to say preview of coming attractions, and just by having dropped a note or something, a word or two. But I one of the things I noticed is that you're including in this some like exercises or like meditations, and maybe um, could you give us an example of a meditation that you might
yeah,
be planning to include so that we get a little flavor?
yeah. Um, let's see which to pull. I'm kind of they're evolving as we speak. Well, the one that I think is just sort of outside of the norm is um, actually, let me back up. I wanted just to sort of say that um, when we read, we tend to, it's a very mental experience, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we are thinking about reading and then being able to say what we read. Like we might write something down, take notes so that we can say it back the way that we read it or the way that we heard it. And so I'm trying to give people a way to sort of step out of that and into more what I think might be how the sutras were designed to be received and worked with. And so this very basic um, exercise or reflection is about reading the sutra or the sutra. So it's getting granular, but in a very different way. So the exercise is to pick up the book and have the book, and either at random by just holding the book with your eyes closed and opening to a page, or by just kind of keeping a soft focus and going through it, and seeing what draws your attention, because sort of getting into what's happening in my mind now is important. And doing that, with a certain amount of breath awareness and awareness of body, and coming to a place to read, and reading in a slowed down way, one short piece that you've landed on, and doing it a few times. And then taking that.
Do you want me to do one?
Sure.
By the magic of internet, we can hand things across to each other. Okay, here's the one I came to. I'm just going to read the English.
Yes.
What determines how and when we have the experience of samadhi is our dedication to the yoga practices, staying aware of the yoga teachings in everyday life, and sticking with a clear intention to receive the inspiration of samadhi.
So now, pay attention to your breath and your sitting bones on your chair, and read it again slow so that you're telling it to yourself.
What determines how and when we have the experience of samadhi is our dedication to the yoga practices, to staying aware of the yoga teachings in everyday life, and sticking with a clear intention to receive the inspiration of samadhi.
Mm-hmm. And then you can put the book down and close your eyes and just take, you would take a minute or so, but you can just take a few seconds because you're Peter Furco, Yogiraj. And you can just let whatever you heard resonate. And then as you come out, you would speak out loud or write or draw or move with what you heard. Any aspect, not the whole thing, maybe. And that would be a way to take it in that goes beyond just reading and telling.
Yeah.
Did anything come up for you?
Yeah, there's a kind of like ISHTA-ish thing of it, like it sort of implied that like go-getter part, like if you're determined, you'll get it, if you stick with the thing and all of that. But it didn't say it's no good if you just move at your own pace.
It didn't say that.
That there's always, that possibility that you're just going to do some and do some and do some and stay open when you can stay open to the experience of yoga in everyday life. But sometimes you might forget, right?
And that feels like it's an important piece. Like sometimes you might forget, you come back, but you stay with it. So that's just a kind of a general example that I wanted to include, right? It doesn't employ big techniques, except there is some technique there, staying focused on body and breath. And of reading is slowing it down and feeling the vibrational quality, what it means for me in the moment, what's coming up for me. Also, like what might be how I, like what's in my way, what challenges I'm experiencing with this. And then you spoke it out loud, what you heard, because we're together, but you could also just speak to your imaginary friend or write or even just move with. Some of us are not that intellectual. Like we don't need to process so much up here. So, my feeling is that, we're all in this to sort of like know ourselves better and be able to use the yogic tools for transformation, which is what it's about. But that we get like really a little overly focused on the goal, which is like a what do you say it? Almost like a MacGuffin. We're like searching for something that isn't there. We're here. It's here. You know.
Right. It's enough just to do the practice.
Because and then you see the effects arise, right? We did the practice, and the effect was, oh, you just kind of heard something about how you get to samadhi in a different way. That was meaningful for you in the moment.
Yeah. Wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk logistics for a minute. So when is this course and stuff like that?
So module 1 is coming up on May 19th. Sorry. Module 1 is coming up on May 19th, which is this Sunday. And there's, if you're sort of still undecided and you want to come to an information session with me on Zoom just to talk through some of it or find out more, that I'm going to hold that info session on Wednesday, which is May 15th at noon on Zoom.
And we can find out these details again in the show notes, but also at ISHTAYoga.com.
ISHTAYoga.com is where the info is. Yes. And then the next 2 modules are scheduled out. So June 16th is Samadhipada, the module on Samadhipada, and July 21st is the module on Sadhanapada. All of the modules are from 1 p.m. to 5 p.m. at ISHTA Yoga in person, or you can take it online, come hybrid. Or it's hybrid, come online. And the final 3 modules are yet to be dates announced, but should be fall winter 2024 this year.
So there's the intro module, that's the context one that you spoke of, and then there's the one for each of the 4 padas, and then there's a final.
There's a final integration, which is just to sort of go back over. It's going to probably be more discussion based, practice based, no new information, just kind of putting it together in new ways. I think especially teachers might be interested in having time to come to dip into one or more of the modules and then to have a chance to come back to integrate.
Nice.
I also do plan, I think this is going to be how it goes, I do plan to have an optional 1-hour conversation section or discussion section in between each module on Zoom, just on Zoom. So I think they'll have topics. It'll have a topic from the previous module or 2 that people can digest with each other, kind of in community. A big intention of mine here is to start to build some community around this this language of Tantra and the sutras, because I think it's helpful.
Yeah. Fantastic.
Yeah. Thank you for having this. Yeah. Thank you for having me on your podcast.
You're very welcome. Come anytime.
And thank you for showing the magic of the
internet.
Internet.
Yes. All right. Well, I will see you in a minute. And I will see all of you. Thanks a lot for coming to Peter's podcast, whether it's in a podcast app or in our new YouTube version, which is fun because Wendy and I are here on screen at the same time, which is somehow slightly more real.
Yes, I know. And we both looked at each other across,
in that real time. So like hybrid, you can do it online or real.
I think that it is. I'm gonna show in yoga that there's something called siddhis, which are the powers that come or the transformations that show up as you do your practice, and it's something that comes up in Vibhuti Pada. And we're always looking out for, like what city is arriving. So I've developed the city of being able to be in 2 dimensions,
Yes.
and then also be in 3 dimensions, and with my host.
Yes.
So
All right. Namaste.
namaste.